Slavery stands as a dark chapter in human history, leaving an indelible mark on societies across the globe. The practice has taken many forms, but its essence remains rooted in exploitation and dehumanization. When two young women are acquired at the human market, they approach their new owner, Alan, with quiet determination. One of them asks why he buys them. The other says she wants Alan to tell them what he really wants from them. Alan repeats the question in his mind, wondering what he wants from the slaves he bought. He thinks that the answer should be obvious. Of course. But then another thought surfaces. He says he wants to free the world from hunger, he guesses. He calls himself an idiot. His vision isn't yet fully formed, and doubt still lingers. But his heart longs for change. This story is not just about bondage or freedom. It is a deeper journey, about unshackling ourselves from old systems, confronting what it means to be human, and imagining a better future. The manga begins with a boy sees a pure white space. What he sees before him is the smile of a beauty far superior to that of a human. He calls it a chance encounter with a goddess. In other words, he confirms that he died. Yes, he is dead. The boy says this is what he learned about in those lectures, the staple of all web novels, Isekai'd into another world. He imagines he will surely be granted an unimaginable power and will start living out the life of a hero in another world, and then he will be doing this and that with pretty girls. The boy says after 30 years of his lonely life with his trusted partner, he will say goodbye to his virginity. The goddess then speaks that it seems Alan has awoken. She then calls him shitty, unpopular, and unable to hold a proper conversation with women, and refers to him as Mr. Virgin. He reacts and asks what that was. Anyway, she speaks the truth, so he can't retort. Thanks to his sharp-tongued younger sister, this guy gets used to such biting remarks. His sister always mocks him relentlessly. If anything, he says he's confident in his resistance toward verbal abuse. This situation is nothing in comparison. In fact, hearing these words makes him feel better. Curious, he asks who the beauty in front of him is. She apologizes for the late introduction and says she is a being whom mortals call a goddess. At that point, he realizes that he is dead. The reason goes back to a certain moment. She says he collides with a high school girl who falls from a building and suffers a fatal injury to his spinal cord. Yeah, he remembers trying to save her when she falls on him while he is returning home from overtime. The goddess says he falls prey to her juicy ass. What the hell? She asks if it is to his satisfaction. He questions why she's smiling. He doesn't deny the desire to be sat upon by a woman's ass, but says that, like this, he doesn't even feel that softness. He insists that he is the one who gets to decide if it is to his satisfaction or not. He asks about the girl who fell. The goddess says she is saved thanks to his efforts. This reassures him. He says it's good that his death is not in vain. The goddess says she saves his mortal life. To reward that good deed, she says she will give him a special favor and a second chance at life. A second chance and a special favor. This is the usual pattern. He says he has been waiting for this. The goddess says he will be reincarnated in a fantasy world of swords and magic. To be precise, she says he will possess a person. He asks how possession differs from reincarnation. She explains that in the goddess's realm, there's a flood of reincarnators and a lack of vessels, the bodies for those souls. To ensure smooth execution of the work, they select and procure in advance the receptacles. That is, the bodies of natives. Every business has it rough. The one he will be possessing is him. A boy called Alan. Looking at Alan's face, he wonders if the boy is around 17 or 18. Oh my, what a cute face he has. It's an outstanding body. The goddess says it has quite good compatibility with an older Oni-san. Sex is all but guaranteed. She says that with this, she can grant a fervent wish for a change his skinny virgin ass holds dear. What the hell? This shitty goddess keeps playing with people as easily as she breathes. She asks if he wants to die. He protests, saying he doesn't even say anything. He asks her to please not peek at others' thoughts. He then asks about possession, saying it's like uniting with the former Alan's personality, so they will be together like two minds sharing the body. Despite imagining such a scenario, the goddess reveals that, unfortunately, the original personality of Alan will cease to exist. Alan, being a novice adventurer raised in an orphanage, is about to lose his life in a starting dungeon. This leads him to dramatically call out to his future partner. The goddess explains that when Alan's soul leaves his body, she will have his own soul inhabit the now empty vessel. He pauses and says he's kind of conflicted about this. He realizes that Alan is going to die in the dungeon and ends up as monster food. He says he doesn't want to possess the body of a zombie. He laughs and adds that he's had enough of being called smelly in his previous life already. The goddess smiles and says that's why she is giving him a transmigrator's privilege. She announces what she will grant him, the regeneration skill. He repeats the word in confusion and confirms that it's the thing that helps recover from injuries and body decline. The goddess clarifies that it is set to activate the moment his soul possesses Alan's body. She then asks if he understands now. He nods and says he sees it. He realizes that at the time of the original Alan's death, his own soul and personality will be injected, the wounds that led to death will be healed with regeneration, and he will regain consciousness. He calls it crazy and thinks this cheat of canceling death is so against the rules, SSS tier, basically for free. In short, he believes if he uses regeneration on a beautiful girl or woman, they will be filled with gratitude and his full of sex life is guaranteed. The result appears in his mind. Goodbye, virginity. The goddess concludes the explanation and asks if he has any questions. He responds with full confidence that he is all ready. He declares there is no reason to shrink away when a glorious future lies ahead. No, there is none. As his second life begins, his adventure in another world, living a fulfilling life, starts at this moment. For sure, a peachy life awaits him. As he spreads his arms in light, he says watch him as he becomes a harem king. Well, there is a time when he thinks like this. He is Alan, formerly a skinny virgin ass. 3 years have passed since he starts living in this other world of swords and magic. In the meantime, he is getting closer to setting a new record for keeping his virginity. Not only does Alan fail to hold a girl's hand, he can't even manage to have a proper conversation with one. He questions if this is a joke or a bad dream. There are also a couple of miscalculations. Number 1, exterminating monsters is hard. Alan says he can't win normally, even against the weakest monster, a slime boyo. Number 2, you can't learn magic by leveling up. The goddess announces this in a dream, but she forgets to mention it before. The prospects of making it big are simply hopeless. What's more, the only card Alan can play is the regeneration skill. It is quite strong with its momentous activation and low mana consumption. Number 3, it's impossible to cut pain receptors, but the pain doesn't go away. The endless loop of pain is hella scary. Number 4, failure to form a party. There is nobody who would want such an incompetent, weak companion. Alan ends up a total loner. His only salvation is not using regeneration in front of others. It's not that he can't use it. As he secretly heals a guy nearby, his wound starts to disappear. He remarks that this is the power granted by a god. The heal skill, which can help cure yourself, is considered a miracle art. That's what the church says, at least. Number 5, the church holds all authority. Apparently, it's a dangerous organization that has accumulated money, authority, and lust and can easily take political power from the empire. Regeneration is a superior version of the heal skill. The last thing he wants is to have eyes on his cheat. But giving up just because of this isn't Alan's style. He says if it were anyone else who doesn't have his quick insight, they would have missed this all. He finally arrives at the slave trader. Alan's 85 IQ brain has a flash of insight. If he can't find companions for his adventure, why not live a slow-paced life instead? He saves enough funds by part-timing at a clinic for 3 years. With a slave, he can give them any loot order. What's more, he can forbid a slave from revealing his regeneration skill by using a slave crest, which makes them obey him unconditionally. It's a foolproof plan. This is where his otherworldly harem life starts. Alan enters the dim interior where the slave trader awaits, grinning as he asks what rank of slave the customer desires. Alan finds the atmosphere intimidating but tells himself not to get swept away. He needs to be resolute. With forced boldness, he raises his voice and demands to see everything, wondering if his approach fails. After showing everything, the trader says that was the last place and asks if something has caught his eye. Alan thinks the only thing that stands out is the price. Still, it's not like he comes unprepared. He decides to show his intelligence and go on the offensive. Alan presses, asking if there are others. The trader reacts in surprise. Alan reminds him that he did ask to see everything. Internally, he admits it was a bluff, but wonders if it actually works. His strategy is to take slaves that couldn't be sold. The trader gives in and leads him through a dark corridor, and Alan follows, questioning whether people are really being kept here. The place is quite unpleasant. Behind bars, two injured girls sit chained and battered. Alan stares in silence, stunned. He asks who they are. The trader explains that one with pointed ears is an ancient elf, a superior breed of elves, while the other is an elder dwarf. Both are rare species. Under normal circumstances, they would be treated as special A-rank slaves, but in their current condition. Alan interrupts and asks how much, and he will take them both. The trader names a sum large enough to erase all of Alan's savings in an instant. Still, Alan insists and wants to return their dignity as soon as possible. Once they're outside, Alan pulls the cart and reassures himself that nobody will see them here. The girls huddle in the back, still scared. He kneels down and gently tells them there's nothing to fear. He says they have endured so much and activates regeneration. He can finally show the true worth of regeneration. Their cut of hands and eyes that lost their light are restored to how they were before. Alan freezes. The elf girl stares at her restored self in disbelief, while the dwarf girl examines her hand and quietly asks how. Alan stuns how beautiful they are. He thinks he wanted cute slaves, but he didn't expect them to be this pretty. His brain can't keep up. How is he supposed to talk to them? Until the elf girl suddenly asks him what his name is. Alan stammers and says his name is Alan, but he bites his tongue while saying it. The girls look at each other and whisper that he fumbled. Alan tries to calm himself down. This is his unexpected boon, and it is finally here, his harem in another world. Alan recalls that time he uses his cheat skill to restore the slaves he buys, who turn out to be beautiful babes. He thinks that finally he will be able to realize that pledge he gave to himself when he reincarnated, to create the harem for himself. He follows up by noting that that's what one would usually think, right? By buying those two, he blows all his savings to the last coin. He has no money to pay for an inn and is forced to live almost in the open in a monastery deep in the mountains. He says from now on, he has a duty to provide sustenance for both of them. Alan states bluntly that he is broke. The goddess interrupts and asks if his lack of forethought is not appalling to see. She presses him to agree. Alan responds that just because she is a goddess, she can't barge into people's inner monologues and tells her to stop. The goddess dismisses him, saying it doesn't cost him anything and questions why he is so serious. She waves him off, telling him to just get out of there. Alan continues reading and groans that anyway, there's a lot of things he doesn't foresee coming upon him. He clutches the scroll and exclaims he just wants to hear certain words from the two whom he restores to their full health. He imagines this as his harem. He notes that as one can guess from what he is talking about, he still continues to update his record on holding on to his virginity. The slaves he buys are an ancient elf named Sylphie and an elder dwarf Noel. Apparently, they both are of rare races in this world. But aside from that, everything about them is a mystery. He thinks he can't read or write the script used in this world like a baby. He looks over the scroll and says he is sure there's a lot of stuff written in this appraisal scroll. The goddess appears again, commenting that he can learn it himself. Alan regains focus and tells himself that thanks to his modern knowledge, he'll be unparalleled in farming. He reassures himself it's not bad. Ain't. And concludes that he needs to get food post-haste. He starts digging until a voice calls out asking what he is doing. He turns and stutters Sylphie's name as she stands before him. He panics, saying he got distracted by her. He quickly explains that he wanted to grow yams. Sylphie looks at him and asks if he will be growing them. Alan responds, yeah. He forces a smile and tries to think that there's no way she will want to eat the yam tended to by the skinny virgin ass. He mutters, it's gotta be the reason, yeah. Alan then wonders if she thinks of him as a sorry excuse for a master and wants to be self-sufficient. He is sure it's true. He asks if she is on a walk and tells her to take care. Sylphie replies with an uncertain "ee." He affirms he won't let them continue sleeping under the sky or stay very hungry. Until yams can be picked, they will eat this one first. He smiles and presents a basket of food that he bought in town. He still thinks about his wallet, but if they both gain some meat on them, they will be quite good to cuddle with. Alan offers food to Noel, saying this is tasty. Noel holds the bowl and softly says, thank you. He insists there are seconds and tells them to eat more and more. He notes that they are both still quite wary of him. Well, in this situation, he can't very well go and ask them to have sex with him. He questions how he is going to get them to be open with him. He decides that for now, he needs to find work. It's depressing, but today he could only come up with some bait to nibble on. He informs them that he is heading to town and asks them to wait for him. He turns to them and asks if they want to eat something specific, saying he'll buy it on the way back. Sylphie says nothing in particular. Noel adds me too. As he walks away, he says that he doesn't even know what they like to eat. He reflects that even his plan to lure them with the bait went up in smoke. From Sylphie's point of view, she watches him leave and notes that he really went out and left the slaves. She acknowledges that both she and Noel have already gotten their original powers back. Even though they have slave crests, it's not that hard to break away from their control. She wonders if he is testing their loyalty. She frowns and admits she doesn't understand. And even before this, Sylphie recalls Alan saying he wanted to grow yams. She questions if he will really be growing them even though she is there. Since she has her original powers as an ancient elf back, she believes he should know by reading the appraisal scroll that she has advanced tree magic that can help grow plants. She thinks by using it, she can immediately have it germinate, grow, and bear fruit. She sees Alan tilling repeatedly. She insists that if he just gives her an order, he won't have to labor by himself. Sylphie stands alone, deep in thought. She says she doesn't know what his goal is. She admits she is grateful to him for restoring her body, but despite having a great skill like restoration and owning them, there is no sign of him wanting their bodies or using his power to realize his ambitions. After winning them over, she wonders, does he plan to do something? To confirm her suspicions, Sylphie decides to follow Alan. She observes him visiting a clinic and notices that he heals people without using the restoration skill. If he were to use it, the church would surely take notice, granting him any position and honors he desires. Sylphie just can't understand why this fellow works here for chump change. She sees how grateful people are towards Alan, and now she finds it difficult to concentrate on her mission. Sylphie still can't understand why Alan pretends to be a good person, even though he is someone who buys slaves. Still, Alan doesn't want anything from the slaves he owns. Sylphie feels like going crazy thinking about exactly what this man Alan is thinking anyway. Meanwhile, a glimpse into Alan's thoughts shows him looking at a cloud and finding it shaped like a tit. Since then, around 3 months have passed. From Alan's point of view, the yams are harvested after growing for 3 months. Sylphie can't resist and finally asks him why he isn't using her to raise food. Alan jokingly wonders if she expects him to put them to work in the fields. He assures her that he is perfectly fine managing on his own, thanks to his restoration skills. Moreover, Alan wants to brag about how he raised all this stuff by himself. Still, he appreciates their concern. That's when Sylphie tries to confirm with Alan whether he knows that with her tree magic, she can harvest crops immediately. The next moment, she gives him a demo and shows some magic. His eyes widen with wonder at what he deems a cheat-level skill. He can't help but wonder if Sylphie has been hiding this power all along. Seeing his puzzled expression, Sylphie asks if he has been unaware of her abilities. She points out that such information is readily available in her appraisal scroll. It's the same damn paper that he cannot read at all. For a second, he wonders if he should tell them the truth. He is fine being a baby who can't read or write, but he just can't proclaim it, fearing they might think their master is a baby. This is already well into deviant territory. It's too shameful for Alan as their master. A man has to look good before a girl. He wonders if he should tell them an awkward lie. He will immediately be branded as a perverted yam lover, and the girls won't spare him another look. He has already been looked at quite enough. And so, for some reason, Alan continues to single-mindedly grow these yams that could be raised in a second. He has to calm down and think quickly. He needs to come up with something that won't make him look like a pervert or diminish his worth. If possible, Alan needs to find an excuse that raises his image in their eyes. That's when Alan tells Sylphie that magic is a two-sided coin, and depending on the user, it can become either a poison or a cure. This is why Alan decides not to force others to use magic. When the time comes, he will tell the concerned person to use magic of their own will. He adds that people think they can do anything they want, and this is the scariest thing in the world. Yet, who the hell is he to tell them all this? Alan himself used to think like this, believing he could do anything with these girls. He used restoration for the sole reason of making out with them. Alan tells them that there's no need to force themselves to use magic. He feels so freaking embarrassed right now. He then declares that they should go harvesting. From Sylphie's point of view, even if one tries to put up a good front, that person still can't help but show their real nature after seeing Sylphie's magic. However, as one glosses it over, the eyes reveal the true feelings. This is exactly what Sylphie hopes to achieve by doing this. Well, his expressions do change, but it seems like a deep wound has opened in his heart. She feels as though Alan is suffering. The more he speaks, his words sound like he's trying to persuade himself. Sylvie is sure it's no lie. Alan has experienced the same. In his past, he was conceited, thinking he could do anything, losing himself in his restoration power. But then something happened that completely changed his views, which is why Alan now hides his own powers. Now Sylvie feels ashamed for flaunting her magic and trying to trick Alan. Calling herself Cora Sylvie, she calls out to Noel and asks if she agrees. Noel asks what she needs, and Sylvie explains that she wants to talk about the future and what exactly they want for Alan. Meanwhile, Alan is completely surprised and confused. The next day, when he sees all the plantations, he is shocked to the core and can't understand what has happened overnight. He realizes that all this has been done skillfully by Sylvie, who possesses a planting cheat that even overshadows him, a reincarnator. Although he wishes to become a talented lord of agriculture, Alan accepts what happened since Sylvie achieved it. She greets Alan with a good morning and mentions that she was harvesting too. He asks if she used magic. She confirms it, adding that she hadn't acted hastily but had done it willingly. Alan recalls this was what he said yesterday, wondering if she is trying to find fault within him. This is Alan's perfect plan to leverage modern knowledge and become unparalleled. However, he feels Sylvie is trying to act rudely towards him. Nonetheless, he thanks her for the magic and reassures her she doesn't need to force herself. With his showtime over, Alan still has something to demonstrate, a do-it-yourself cheat to embed concrete, a material that doesn't exist in this world. He explains how concrete can make buildings sturdy and improve their living conditions. Noel, intrigued by Alan's activities, expresses her desire to join him and help out, marking the first time she speaks to him like this. She asks him what he is making, smelling him working on something. Alan explains his plan to build a new house with concrete, describing how living in the crumbling monastery feels like camping. Noel demands to know the concept, and Alan patiently explains everything in detail. He finds it gratifying when a girl listens intently to him, happily teaching Noel everything she wants to know. Once Noel understands the concept, she instructs Alan to sit and watch, indicating that she is ready to take charge. Noel uses her extraction skill, and Alan sees how she obtains clay and quartz, the raw materials for cement, in a blink of an eye. This is no good. It's going to take away all of Alan's contributions. Next, Noel uses pulverize, and Alan realizes that Noel also holds a cheat skill. Within a while, the cement is ready. Noel now requires Sylvie's help to grow bamboo sprouts. By the way, it was Alan who said all this so proudly but receives no credit. Recently, he also notices that both Sylvie and Noel have started talking to each other more and more. It seems they are joining hands while Alan just gets so full of himself. He definitely needs to watch out. To be honest, Alan feels like a useless being here. With Noel as the manufacturing master and Sylvie as the plant master, things become so easy. Alan wonders why things turn out like this. He should have been the highlight and the one flirting with the girls. Alan wonders what exactly is going to happen to him afterward. At this very moment, Alan still doesn't know that since the time he bought both of them, he will surprisingly be worshipped as a demon king. And in the future, Alan will be regarded as a threat by a hero and will experience a life full of ups and downs. The goddess feels that this boy will definitely turn out to be entertaining, and she desires to make fun of him. She also desperately waits to see how things will unfold. According to Noelle, what Alan told her is indeed interesting, and her dwarven instincts scream with excitement. It is her first time experiencing this. And doing just as Alan says brings results. This is sagacious. At this moment, Noel realizes that Alan is not just a simple nobody. His restoration skill is great, and not flaunting it is even greater. Furthermore, she admires his willingness to share his knowledge without reservation. So, everything about him is just great. What's more, Alan teaches her everything, and as an elder dwarf, this makes her so happy. Sylvie also thinks that they can put their trust in Alan, and Noelle shares the same thought. She too wants to take the weight off Alan's shoulders. When Alan wakes up, he is delighted to find 2 more monasteries standing there, which surprises him greatly. Spotting Noelle, he approaches her, and she casually informs him that she has made 3, 1 for each of them. She delivers this shocking revelation with remarkable nonchalance. As Noelle comes closer, Alan can't help but find her incredibly cute, like a doll. She then reveals that she worked hard for him, Sylvie, and herself, and now she wants to be praised by her master. Alan has always anticipated this moment, but now he feels embarrassed. Sylvie winks at him, encouraging him to praise Noelle immediately. Alan suddenly realizes that both of them are teaming up against him, making him feel rather helpless. In other words, he suspects that the girls have likely discussed him during their gossip sessions, possibly criticizing his lack of money, talents, and his tendency to show off with his restoration skills. Alan feels like an overall incompetent person in their eyes. He imagines they might have even labeled him as a filthy otaku, skinny, inexperienced, a total virgin. In their eyes, living with him might even be considered dangerous, which is why Noel has built separate places for them to live safely. Alan is sure that they are making fun of him and calling him a swine. He just needs to calm down now. He has already come this far, so there's no way he is backing down. He is now in a position to praise Noel, which means he is allowed to pat her head. All is grist that comes to the mill. Alan just doesn't want others to look down on him as a pervert. Alan pats her head and thanks Noel. She smiles gladly at him. Alan feels as though his heart is being purified. Her hair is so damn silky smooth. Sylphie witnesses the situation and can't believe this intimacy. She feels jealous but tries to calm down, deciding not to be jealous of simple head patting. Sylphie resolves that starting tomorrow, she will increase the number of harvestable plants. Of course, she has no ulterior motives, and Alan already considers her indispensable. As a couple more months pass, Sylphie notices that Alan, as usual, is busy tending the fields by himself. It seems like he has forgotten about the magic they possess. Magic in their world is divided into 5 basic attributes: fire, water, wind, metal, and earth. Sylphie has an evolved wind attribute and an aptitude for plants, while Noel excels in fire, metal, and earth attributes. Their compatibility is exceptional. Both for food and shelter, they have utilized all their magic, and Alan has never once forced them to use it against their will. He isn't driven by desires, nor does he seek conflicts. According to Sylphie, Alan lives his life like a hermit, with his only obsession being yams. Nevertheless, he is a fully developed person with his own desires and aspirations. Sylphie is certain that he has things he wants to do, and now she wants to uncover the real Alan and his true feelings. She wonders if he has been lonely all this time, but she knows this isn't the case. If it were, there would have been no need for him to choose them. It is time to reveal the truth. Sylphie directly asks Alan and wants to hear from him the true reason why he bought them. Ahem. Alan just wants to have sex with them, nothing more. Of course, there's no way he is going to say this out loud. Meanwhile, Noelle pokes her head out and tells Alan that she, too, is interested in hearing the reason. It is a fact that they are rare species, but Alan just uses them to make up for deficiencies around him. They wonder if he has anything else he wants them to do. Are they really kidding him? The girls continue to ask Alan various questions. Alan, on the other hand, feels grateful that they gave him food and a home, so there's no need to tap into their potential anymore. Even if they tell him to lick their feet, he would do it obediently. Moreover, Alan, the pervert, would gladly do this. Both Sylphie and Noel decide to show Alan what else they can do. Sylphie shows off her rare tree magic, and Noel displays her high-speed refining. According to Alan, these two are utterly trying to destroy his self-esteem. Well, if this is their intention, Alan is ready to play along. He tells them to hear it carefully. His desire, as he says it without pulling any punches. No, not this one. Alan declares that, for starters, he wants to free the world from hunger. Of course, both of them are surprised. He wonders if they would run away. If he weren't the eldest son, Alan would have died from self-loathing right here. Sylphie really doubts Alan, as what he says sounds like an ideal befitting of a god. She then notices how Alan holds that yam in his hand like a treasure and his expressions from time to time. They look at each other and conclude that their master holds in his heart an ideal far beyond what they can even imagine or hope for. Sylphie still can't fully trust him, but she wants to follow him and see the world he wishes to create. She declares that if this is Alan's goal, then they just need land to cultivate. Well, due to Alan's made-up excuse, his doubtful heroic tale in another world takes its first step forward. In this world, there are only 2 types of people: losers and winners, those who plan and those who follow, those who exploit and those who are exploited. Alan is now busy exchanging foodstuff and complaining that Mizuki's exchange rate is too high. Mizuki teases him, saying that she is still a growing kid. Alan remains strict in trading and shows no mercy even for his little sister. He now sits wondering if his past life's little sister Mizuki is doing well. For him, this is his only regret, not being with her. Meanwhile, Sylphie calls out to him, and Alan snaps back from his daydream. This isn't good, as he has once again tried to escape reality while reminiscing about the past. Sylphie sighs and asks if he heard her. She is all set to cultivate the land and erase hunger from the world. Now that he has said what he didn't want to, he has no choice but to follow through. Alan feels disappointed, as such an intellectual beauty like Sylphie should have been vaguely aware of his ulterior motives. In reality, it is Alan being a coward, unable to take back his words, which falls right into her expectations. At this rate, Alan is dancing in the palm of her hand. This shitty virgin ass is really trying hard to be a goody two-shoes. Alan imagines all kinds of stupid things and wonders if this is the beginning of his otherworldly harem life. No, damn, he can still fight. Alan still has a bunch of modern knowledge up his sleeve, much of it learned from the guy people called Professor back in elementary school. Since things have come to this, he decides to get his revenge using his cheap knowledge. The goddess wonders if Alan has actually learned anything. Alan then informs both of them that they are now going to make fertilizers. Curious, both of them want to know what this is. Alan explains that fertilizer is something that supplements the soil's nutrients used for growing crops. He is certain they can grow things even on barren land thanks to Sylphie's tree magic, but it would be hard to sustain for long. Sylphie agrees. Furthermore, Alan tells them about crop rotation and explains a truly perfect cycle of agricultural revolution. Look, first, they need to make hatchets and hoes to widen the land. He notices that Sylphie is awestruck and speechless. Well, there's no woman in the world who likes a vain and boastful man, but Noel does. She approaches Alan and asks him to tell her the details, as she wants to make it immediately. This time, Alan wants to shine, but Sylphie tells her it's better if he does it. Sylphie intervenes and tells Alan that throwing a tantrum here isn't okay. This elf always treats Alan like a petulant child. Noel clings on to him and demands an explanation, eager to make fertilizers. And so, Alan explains the whole procedure. He is so done with this super modern knowledge coughing up session. Noel finds it fascinating and declares that she is starting immediately. Now for lunch, they are having yam soup, but before that, Noel wants to show them something. She opens the door and shows off the hatchets, hoes, and some fertilizers that she managed to make. Both Sylphie and Alan can't believe their eyes. Noel makes a note of the ratios to make adjustments later, and Alan finds her resembling someone from the mysterious TV series Galileo. Alan thanks Noel for her hard work, and she is happy, as this will make Alan's work much easier. Now, Noel is in charge of manufacturing, Sylphie is in charge of cultivation, and Alan is in charge of land reclamation and logging. Well, the odd jobs fall on him. Quite a fitting role for a reincarnator. These two girls steal Alan's thunder and toss chores on him. Moreover, they keep asking for praises. This isn't exploitation, since he is still their master. Sylphie feels jealous again, but is helpless as usual. She suggests that they have lunch first and then begin cultivation. Sylphie is indeed curious and ponders Alan's desire to eliminate hunger, though she doubts whether this is truly possible. Still, she is impressed by his vast amount of knowledge. She thinks that for a long time, Alan must have struggled alone to make his ideal a reality. Sylphie is sure that the reason he bought her is because only an ancient elf can freely control the tree magic that stimulates plant growth. Besides this, Alan doesn't force her to work, nor orders her with the slave crest. Honestly, respecting a slave's independence is just great. Alan notices that Sylphie seems restless and asks if she said something. Sylphie cuts him off and asks both of them if they would like a second serving. Noel agrees and accepts the offer. After this, Alan gets back to work and praises Noel as his work proceeds smoothly. Even though things haven't gone the way he initially wanted, he is sure there is still a way forward. He uses his regeneration skill, which can even bring fertile soil to the surface. Alan now wants Sylphie and Noel to praise him for a job well done. He enjoys patting their heads, but now wants to be patted and appreciated himself. Alan's struggles continue well into the evening. Noel notices the cultivation done with restoration is amazing. She is glad that Alan is genuinely working towards the goal of eliminating hunger and believes that's why he bought her. Still, to entrust them with such wisdom without reserve, even though it would be easy to use it for selfish reasons behind his back, surprises her. She wonders if he believes that slaves won't betray him. Well, that isn't the case after all. Alan has not even once given them an order. She understands that he trusts them, and they feel they haven't been kind enough to respond in return. Noel then swears upon an elder dwarf's name that she will support Alan. She is certain that Sylphie feels the same. They both decide to give their 100%. There is no doubt that Alan desires for them to take action of their own volition, and so they resolve to do everything in their power to make his and their ideals a reality. Alan remains completely unaware of what is happening here. Meanwhile, the goddess is pleased to see this lazy virgin ass working hard, but Alan warns her to stop poking her nose in his business and trying to find faults with him. Alan has thought about this from the start and wonders if all goddesses are like her. Bitter as hell, the goddess laughs and tells Alan that he made this choice for himself. Making fun of Alan is all she wants. Well, it is true that Alan is free because Sylphie and Noel work well together. As for the long-awaited Fufu event, there is no sign of it ever happening. The excitement of getting intimate with the girl seems to be fading, and Alan is living the life of a retired old man. Well, if Alan doesn't have any hobbies, he could just find some. Alan gets an idea and goes to disturb Noelle. She is perfectly fine with him disturbing her, and Alan shows her what she needs to make. He purposely stands close to her and feels her soft arm. There aren't any sizes listed, so Alan instructs Noelle to make it such that they can place it on the table. Since he can't read or write, he draws a simple illustration instead. Noel agrees to make it and demands to know what he will use it for. Alan tells her that it's something he needs. Well, it's an eye-catching product meant to bring joy to both of them. They can enjoy games together, talk more, and who knows what else. By taking advantage of a punishment game, Alan could even get his 18+ plot development. Noelle understands and starts working on it immediately. Now, one wonders if Alan will become the one who exploits others or not. Sylphie notices that Alan and Noel are making something in the workshop. She eavesdrops on the conversation, but words like chess, reverie, shogi, and Jenga all sound alien to her. She wonders if they are doing something for recreation. She feels compelled to ask Alan what this is all about, but remembers that Alan wants to rid the world of hunger. So why does he want to do this? Sylphie asks whether she can join them. Alan says, of course she can join. As he smiles, Sylphie notices it and thinks there must be some hidden meaning behind it. She looks closely at Alan and feels that he gives off fake impressions of being a lethargic young man. Sylphie becomes determined to understand Alan better in order to support him. At the table, Alan shows Sylphie and Noel how to play Jenga and Reversi. Sylphie is taken aback by the sheer fun and intricacies of the board games. Then Alan proposes to place a bet on the game to make it more interesting. He says the winner can give the loser any order they want. Sylphie is unable to comprehend Alan's proposal. She gets lost in thoughts about what this game betting could mean. Can it help end hunger? How can this empower a slave to give orders? Suddenly, Noel interjects, saying they both need to do what they can. Sylphie agrees with Noel, and both are ready to play with Alan. After making their negotiations, Alan declares that they should start their battle with Reversi. Then Sylphie wonders how they can win if Alan is the one who created the game and knows all the rules. She thinks it's a bad move. The game begins, and Alan makes mistakes, ultimately losing the match. Sylphie is sure that Alan never intended to win and deliberately lost. Forcing them to give orders to their master, Noel becomes excited that they won the match. She tells Alan that she wants ownership rights for the recreational items, while Sylphie wants to be registered at the Merchants Guild. Alan is relieved that they didn't ask for their release from slavery, but something else is already cooking in his mind. He wants to trick them into 18+ development. Later, Sylphie registers at the Merchants Guild, and Noel registers at the Alchemists Guild. Alan suggests that since they are in the imperial capital, they should buy some things. Sylphie is happy to see Alan enjoying himself. 2 weeks after registering Sylphie and Noel at their respective guilds, Alan becomes engrossed in shogi training. He sets some rules for Sylphie, but she tells him that he is weak and beats him in the game. Noel reminds Sylphie that they have to go to the capital. Alan tells them to return before dinner. He feels disappointed that he still hasn't figured out a way to get intimate with his slaves. He thinks alcohol might help. Suddenly, the goddess appears and interrupts Alan by reading his thoughts. She says that Alan is unreliable, which is why his slaves are ditching him and going out to work. She further stresses that Alan is short-sighted, thinking games like shogi and reversi are enough to entertain his slaves. Alan's thoughts run wild as he imagines his slaves selling themselves to someone else. He rushes to the capital, worried about how poorly he has managed his slaves. He finds them in the capital and says they can ask for anything they want. Sylphie wells up with emotion. At the bank, Noel asks the manager to reveal Alan's bank balance. Alan is petrified, but when he hears that he has 3 million dole, he can't believe his ears. He learns that his recreational games are very popular in the capital, and his slaves are behind it. Sylphie tells Alan that he's receiving royalties from all the sales. Alan is happy and announces that they should buy some new things. But Sylphie and Noel have already acquired 50 more slaves for him. They introduce the newcomers to Alan: Ellie, Tina, Ray, Aura, Karen, Emma, and Arya, which makes his stomach tighten as he realizes the scale of the mess he's gotten himself into. Sylphie tells him he's now expected to act as the village chief of the slaves, and that everyone is counting on him. With the responsibility of providing a livelihood for over 50 people suddenly thrust upon him, Alan starts to question what kind of path his isekai life is about to take. In the next chapter, Alan lies on his bed and notes that in just one day he has gotten 50 more slaves to care for, contemplating whether he has made a mistake somewhere. He believes he did nothing wrong and quickly shifts the blame, claiming Sylphie and Noel are at fault. A couple of hours ago at the shop, Sylphie points to a group of girls and declares she will buy all the girls from the back. The shopkeeper calculates the total price, but she is warning him not to take her for a fool. She says that taking into account the girls' wounds, the price should go 2 digits down. The shopkeeper protests, saying he needs to make money with this business. Sylphie confidently states that the sum will amount to less than what would be spent on the upkeep of unsold stock. Sylphie's negotiating prowess is unbeatable as she faces the slave trader on equal terms, deliberately referring to the slaves as property. Alan thinks on how, if she were to show compassion to the girls like he did, she'd surely have been taken advantage of, like he was. He watches in awe as she argues down the veteran merchant with ease, describing it as taking candy from a child. Sylphie comforts a girl who trembles with guilt, saying it's okay, telling her not to be hasty and to take it slow. Alan expresses admiration, exclaiming, "Wow, Sylphie." He is impressed that she can handle the slaves in such a smart way. He yells out, saying he always wanted to do that himself instead. He says she's beautiful, smart, impeccably stylish, and smells so good. Alan admits she has the agriculture cheat and is good at being a merchant. He questions if she is the protagonist, and also, he can barely catch up to her high specs. Alan notes that he is a reincarnator and demands respect, otherwise he'll simply die on the spot. Meanwhile, Noel tells Sylphie that she is sure that this one's skills will blossom soon. Alan wonders whether Noel brought up something. She concludes that one can get a highly precise alchemy skill, and with training, she will easily acquire it. So in this world, there are both hereditary and acquired skills. She elaborates that whether they manifest or not, the term blossom depends on the individual. Alan worries there's no skill to detect a skill yet to blossom, and it's also not written on a slave's appraisal scroll. He wonders whether she has the analysis cheat, then bids goodbye to his presence. Back in his room, he admits he doesn't understand anything and has no time to catch his breath. He decides he'll need to come up with a strategy for the future. Switching perspectives, Sylphie affirms that there shouldn't be any misunderstanding now. After all, Alan appreciating their efforts. She recalls that at that time, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing, but he didn't see them. She reassures that he can ask her anything he wants. She thinks on how she always worried if she disappointed him or not. Receiving so many items for recreation made her think she needed to earn a lot, or else. She remembers Alan not trying to interfere, only asking to play games every day, and he always let her win. He reminds her that he hasn't been serious once yet. She laughs internally at the way he tried to explain away his defeat like a little child. She believes there is no way for someone to come up with all this just to be weak, and it was surely for the sole reason of preparing her for handling merchants. She concludes that he can't hide his compassion and warm heart from them. To herself, she decides to keep it a secret that she finds this side of him endearing. Reflecting deeply, she admits that slaves, in most cases, are beings exploited and worked to the bone. And yet, Alan took them into his warm hands. Obviously, she believes there's nobody who wouldn't let themselves melt in them. That's why she and Noel, for the sake of Alan's dearest wish, to rid the world of hunger, they bought the necessary personnel. They knock on Alan's door, asking if they can enter. He says yes, tells them not to be so nervous, and lets them sit wherever they want. They respond that there is no need and they are okay. Moved to Alan's side, he stammers, wondering whether they don't want to spend more time in a guy's room or if it's because the room smells. He says if they are tired, they should just rest, and tells them they did great with the recreation items. He thinks that though he can't deny the fact they are stealing his achievements left and right, he must take the attitude of a man who honestly praises one's efforts. Smiling at them, Alan declares that as their master, he is proud of them, and now, immediately, he'll go and try to fix his situation. Sylphie asks if they didn't earn quite a lot of money. Noel says the swine should use that money and quickly release them from the slave crests, but Alan wants to make an impression before that situation comes to pass. He decides to put off trying to get laid on a back burner, and he still has the eye candy and inadvertent touch plans. Alan responds with a blunt no. Sylphie comments that they didn't do anything for him to praise them, and Noel agrees. Alan questions internally whether this is sarcasm. After earning 3 million dole, Alan feels uneasy under their gazes and mutters to himself that he can't stand it, and he chooses to proceed with what he thought up. He straightens up and announces that he needs to tell them his plans, going forward, and asks if they are listening. First, he states they will take the money spent on each slave as their debt. When they repay it, he thinks he will remove their slave crests. He explains further that's why they should put efforts into agriculture and commerce. Everyone will provide with their labor, and it will be converted into money and merchandise. They will pay wages with that money, so each girl won't have to suffer by repaying that debt. He asks what they think. He declares in his mind that he'll call it a slave's debt repayment restructurization. The slaves will get their freedom. Sylphie and Noel will collect the money, and he will be freed from the duty of providing a livelihood for 50 slaves. He calls it the very picture of a smooth settlement. He concludes that's what his run-of-the-mill corporate slave's mind could come up with. The responsibility of a CEO to provide a livelihood for his employees just makes his head hurt. With this, no one will oppose. Sylphie and Noel interrupt and lean in, asking if he plans to let everyone he restored go after recovering the purchase price and whether he understands their real worth. Noel points out that after blossoming, their value will go up even more. She believes Alan should rethink that. Sylphie struggles and says she fails to understand such a plan. She reminds him that his goal is to rid the world of hunger and questions whether he wouldn't need talented personnel. Noel nods and says she is of the same mind. Internally, he thinks that his goal is to have a fufu with them both. He questions whether he dares say that, though. Sylphie really knows where to hit for it to hurt the most. He shouts internally that he will bullshit his way through. Alan smiles and says that if possible, he doesn't want to take advantage of them being slaves. If he had to say, he wants fellow comrades who walk beside him of their own will, rather than those who can't disobey. That's who he wants to share his beliefs with. So if there'd be girls who'd want to stay after repaying their debt, he wouldn't mind it, he guesses. Alan presents the whole plan. Noel and the other dwarves, using their alchemy, will be producing farm tools and fertilizer. And by using the characteristics of the elves, a race beloved by nature, they'll increase the productivity of growing yams, wheat, and soybeans. And there's also a secret plan. Cooking. With the 3 pillars he mentions, they will develop new products and procure funds by using the Merchants Guild. He names the plan Alan's Mix. Noel and Sylphie look at him silently. Alan watches their reaction and nervously asks if he made it work, and Sylphie sighs. She looks away and says she thought he wouldn't surprise her anymore, but once again, she's at a loss. Sylphie declares that, then, she will allow herself to do as she pleases as well. Noel wholeheartedly agrees with Sylphie. Alan thinks to himself that the road to Fuckland is still a never-ending one. A virgin's road, he adds, you could say. On Sylphie's side, Sylphie, trembling, wonders how she could make such a fool of herself. She thinks she didn't recognize Alan's forward thinking for what it was, and admits she couldn't give him an answer out of confusion. She questions how she had the audacity to act shocked toward her savior. She recalls what Alan said, that he didn't expect Sylphie to react this way. He thinks he believed Sylphie would surely understand him. Sylphie panics, wondering what she should do and whether she disappointed him. She remembers that Alan said he wants fellow comrades, so he wants slaves to be able to object to his decisions. Noel calls out to Sylphie, asking if she's okay. Sylphie replies to Noel, saying that yes, she's okay. Sylphie now thinks that, after considering it carefully, it does make sense. She notes that he's someone with the desire to rid the world of hunger after all. Noel reflects that it's clear he's not fond of slavery being institutionalized and admits she was overly eager. She adds that he should at least agree that he saved those girls by using restoration, and Sylphie agrees. Sylphie's memory resurfaces as she thinks that the ones being bought are essentially their past selves, just girls deprived of a future due to defects in their bodies. She says it's okay now and acknowledges that Alan had it rough. She smiles softly, thinking he didn't ask for compensation, and his actions were born out of kindness. However, she thinks he should be greedier, and Noel agrees, saying that at present, the girls they bought are all perplexed. Sylphie sighs and affirms it as true. They need to explain his designs to them. Sylphie believes that in time, everyone will understand Alan's kindness, generosity, and intelligence. She recalls that already. His selfless usage of restoration when it matters the most is etched in her mind as his greatness. No. She resolves that she must properly monitor Alan so as not to let him unwittingly seduce the other girls. Noel, confused, responds by asking Sylphie. Then, flustered, she blurts out to forget she said anything and urges Noel to go explain everything. Sylphie addresses the group with that said. As compensation for their labor, they will be paying them salary and asks if anyone has questions. One girl asks if the conditions aren't very convenient for them and she doesn't want to doubt their master, who saved them. Sylphie thinks, just as she expected, remembering how Alan introduced himself by saying that after restoring them, normally a master like that couldn't exist. Sylphie responds, saying she's sorry, but that's just how Alan is. It'd be better to get used to it quickly. One of the girls calls out, addressing her as Lady Sylphie. She asks if she should act more familiar and call her Sylphie. Sylphie responds by saying yes, that's right. The girl says that she'll get the story straight. The girl's name is Aura. She questions if Sylphie is saying they don't need to service Lord Alan, that is to say, surrender their bodies to him. Sylphie responds with yes, right. Internally, Sylphie acknowledges Aura as a high elf, the same age as her, and notes that she wanted to ask her to help with her work. She is glad that Aura was the one who stepped forward. She notes internally, no wonder they are unsettled. Sylphie narrates that elves are the race admired as the symbol of beauty. It'd be a lie to say they aren't proud of that fact. That's not to say they'd want to give their bodies to an unknown man, but to not even be a target of attention will make one doubt their attractiveness, wouldn't it? For an elf to be in this kind of situation is the most disgraceful thing. She thinks that other races will probably find it hard to understand, but she does get this confusing feeling stemming from that contradiction. But Aura wonders aloud if it could be that Alan's not interested in women. Sylphie says she doesn't think so. She admits that she did notice how he looked at her breasts and her behind in addition to her legs. Occasionally, though, Sylphie smiles and thinks this discrepancy from the usual is cute in its own right. She admits that she does inadvertently end up moving her legs like this, though it's not that good a representation, but if she wants to be seen doing it. Suddenly, Aura interrupts, calling her name Sylphie. Sylphie says anyway, despite the things that are scarcely believable or agreeable, Alan is not a man who will hurt others without reason. She swears by the sacred tree, saying that much. As an ancient elf, she will swear. As such, she implores them to pretend to act as if they're being deceived. The girls feel at ease now, as Sylphie bravely swears by the sacred tree, noting that Alan seemed like a kind person. She then turns to Aura and asks if she agrees. Aura responds that she does, and with a sultry smile adds that of course she does. After all, Lord Alan has piqued her interest. The perspective shifts to Aura's side as she introduces herself with a graceful air, stating that it is a good day. She gazes at her own reflection, admiringly declaring how beautiful she is and how perfectly the new clothes fit her. She admits that everyone, including herself, sees her as a narcissist, and she openly confesses her deep love for herself. That is exactly why. A flashback surfaces. After being caught and put in a cell, she burned her skin off. She thinks that if it is her fate to be sold to an unknown man as a foo-foo slave to be disgraced, then it's better to become a liability to the trashy merchant and die. A lethal flaw found in the heart that's supposed to control the core of magic. In this world, just this reason is plenty for someone to fall into slavery. Even a great race such as the High Elves is not an exception. She suffered in despair at losing both her beauty and magic and only being able to wait for death, grasping the last fleeting fragments of dignity before such a time she saw. She narrates that her master, Alan, and an ancient elf, Sylphie, are there. She sees Lord Alan cultivating land under the watch of a slave. Lord Alan is described as the possessor of peculiar sensibilities and, dare she say it, a weirdo. But as Sylphie told her that he, more than anyone else, understands the great power of restoration. That is why he plays a fool. Aura and the others will come to understand him, she is sure. Even still, Aura questions internally, isn't this just way too stupid? Aura notes that thanks to the restoration, their powers returned in full, and market value jumped sky high. As the holder of appraisal scrolls, Lord Alan should know this. And yet, he went along with a contract with the Holy Spirit that must be upheld at all costs. For what purpose? She cannot grasp in the slightest. She thinks to herself that if it's Lord Alan who healed her heart defect she despised, she would not be averse to giving him her body. That just makes her incredibly wet. As a race, elves are a bundle of dignity and vanity. They're women in exchange for flatly refusing any and all base men settling for anyone, toward a person they take an interest in who won't show any interest in return. They burn with passion. At that time, Aura wonders whether Alan might not be interested in women, though Sylphie does not seem to think so. Aura recalls Sylphie's words and concludes that she had the perfect expression of a woman in love. She remembers the goddess-like look on Sylphie's face and admits that it aroused her deeply. She notes her weakness for both beautiful women and sweet girls. If this is part of Alan's plan to make an elf like her fall, then he must be highly skilled. A seasoned veteran on the battlefield of love. Aura resolves that, at all costs, she must ask him for a bout. But first, she needs to offer a light morning greeting. She peeks toward Alan, who is working outside. In Aura vision, she sees Alan calling out restoration and proudly declaring that he has plowed it quite well, urging Sylphie to look. She murmurs, flustered and amused, imagining her pleading to be praised. She softly calls out, referring to him as her cutie. Alan appears to react, and she wonders if he heard her. Suddenly, Alan turns his gaze toward her. Aura freezes, flustered, and questions whether she might have angered him. He stares at her intently with a piercing, unwavering gaze. Aura notices that he is fixedly staring at her and wonders why, even though the beautiful her has appeared in a new outfit. She recalls Sylphie's words, but Alan continues to stare without change. Panic sets in as she considers the possibility that Lord Alan does not even register her standing right in front of him. She trembles, refusing to believe that could be true. Suddenly, Alan cheerfully calls out to her, inviting her to play reversi. Aura snaps to attention with a startled response. The perspective shifts to Alan's side as he, visibly shaken, insists that even if Sylphie played him like a fiddle and made him the village chief without his knowledge, he still has his self-respect. When Aura softly murmurs how cute he is, Alan shivers harder, thinking that damn Aura is adding fuel to the fire, treating him this way just because he is only useful for plowing fields. He invites her to play reversi, noting how long it has been, and snaps. He declares to himself that if things go well, he wants to use the game as a chance to touch her titi. Alan reassures himself that there is no need to worry, that he is calm. He steps forward, reasoning that in terms of position, he is still the village chief. If this were a corporation, he would be the CEO, and any missteps could be disastrous. The thought makes him panic, and he begins frantically pacing, acknowledging that there is no guarantee it will not turn out that way. He reminds himself that from now on, he must act with prudence. Internally, he admits that just moments ago, he tried so hard not to let his eyes wander to Aura's legs. Alan confidently states that he wants to see her true strength and urges her to fight him seriously. He proposes that since the opportunity is there, the winner should be allowed to give the loser one order, anything goes, and asks how she feels about it. He then adds with excitement that in a proper punishment game, everything is legal. In his imagination, Alan envisions Aura's chest and says that if it's a punishment, he'd be able to stare without reserve at her plentiful fruits, which he desperately tried not to do before. He cheers internally, thinking that if anything goes, he'd even be able to touch and be caught within them. He adds that Sylphie is a beauty with shapely TT, but Aura is a beauty with huge honkers, and that in itself is rather great. Her charm is similar to a gravure idol, he thinks. Yet, her demeanor is reminiscent of a prideful, noble daughter. He marvels at the truly amazing marriage of purity. Aura addresses him, calling out to Lord Alan. Alan responds by saying they should begin. He expresses confidence, believing that after all his training with Sylphie and the others, he has become stronger and declares that this match will be his. Aura states that with the board now filled with her color, it would signify her victory. She declares checkmate. Turning to Alan, she remarks that this must be how checkmate works in shogi. She continues, asking if that means when he breaks the Jenga tower, it counts as his loss. Alan sits frozen in place. He quietly admits to himself that he has been thoroughly overwhelmed. No, completely trounced. He quickly adds that he has not been serious yet, just to make that clear. Aura responds with a curious affirmation. Alan calls out to Sylphie as he looks toward her, shouting that Aura is bullying him. He accuses Aura of having no desire at all for her master to win. Aura blushes and softly remarks how adorable he is. Alan clutches his head and declares her to be Aura the ultra-romantic. The perspective shifts to Aura's side as she considers that, although he told her to fight seriously, perhaps he had expected some degree of deference instead. Still, she reflects, Lord Alan is the one who proposed these rather deep games. She wonders why he played like a child, or worse, like a clueless monkey. She notes that the small animal aura he gave off was truly amusing, yet regardless, she is the winner. She muses to herself about what kind of order she should give him. Sylphie then interrupts, remarking that it was a good work at completely failing. Aura turns in shock and stammers internally, questioning whether she truly failed. She flashes back to how she was beside herself with a giddiness just moments ago. Thinking back on it, she had ended the match with such forced boldness that she completely let her guard down around Lord Alan. She admits to herself that no, she had entirely lost it, one could say. She begins to wonder if this had been his aim all along. It dawns on her that he only pretended to let her play him, when in reality, she was the one being played, completely failing. Aura trembles, acknowledging inwardly that she cannot refute it. That must mean she is already dancing in the palm of his hand, a truly terrifying person. Sylphie states that she agrees if she tried to get closer with half-baked feelings, it won't end with you being simply burned. She continues, noting that as someone of the same race, she understands the feelings involved. She adds that Aura should already know it herself. The one who falls in love first will always lose. She observes the aberration that is Lord Alan and the one closest to him, Sylphie. Even she must take her hat off to such a brilliant woman as her. Nobody will be able to take her place, she is sure. Still, she says she will take the warning to heart with all she has. After all, the more adversities stand before her, the more excited she gets by them. The goddess suddenly appears with a grand announcement, declaring that the reincarnated Alan, inventor of recreational items, is Aura's designated punching bag. She claims that if someone were to write about him, it would go something like that. Alan protests, urging her to stop with the harsh commentary. The goddess states that in the realm of goddesses, he ranks number 1 among those whom no one would want to be reincarnated as. She adds that perhaps she should share more. Alan reacts nervously, pleading for her not to continue, admitting he does not want to hear it. The goddess guesses he'd already have some stopgap measures, but Alan denies it being stopgap, explaining he just runs through simulations and prepares responses. Alan thinks on how, keeping in mind those rumors, he gives his first order as village chief. He lifts the ban on allowing slaves to play games and lets them enjoy them as they please. Of course, without getting his approval for that. He also reduces the time for hard labor to a minimum. It's not like he wants to create a white company or anything. If the village's economy collapses, he declares he wasn't the only one to only eat, sleep, and play reversi, and he'll have them know. So he'd be able to say that. The goddess interjects, so he just shirks responsibility. Alan insists that providing employee benefits to the best of his ability and enacting them is the duty of the CEO, the village chief, that is, himself. She comments that he's good at weaseling his way. Alan reflects that lifting the ban brings about a new method of torture for him. A girl addresses him as village chief and asks if he would like to play with her. He recalls, as per Sylphie, Noel, and Aura's suggestions, each and every girl is asking him to have a match with them. Their pretext is deepening our friendship, but he is losing each and every time. In fact, he says he had been assassinated 50 times. Alan wonders if he somehow angered Sylphie, prompting her to instigate everyone. Perhaps it was because he laughed at her when she asked him to scold Aura. That aside, their friendship has indeed deepened. As he reflects, he is approached again. They call out to the village chief, saying they want to play with him and asking if he would like to join. Another slave clings to him, insisting that today they have a prior reservation. He promised to talk with them. The others reply with a hint of disappointment, saying it's unfortunate and that they should do it next time. Alan thinks to himself that the distance between him and the slaves is slowly but surely shrinking. With shared topics to talk about, the slave girls begin to draw even closer. In any case, the strategy Sylphie came up with appears to be a resounding success. As an adult who can honestly express his gratitude, he finds that being treated like a child isn't so bad after all. At present, they are enjoying a rather pleasant communal life. Still, he admits to himself it's hard to say there isn't any dissatisfaction at all. He explains that Sylphie's innate skill, limitless tree formation. It seems that wind magic can evolve into a greater attribute, tree magic, meaning the elves who are loved by the winds and receive their blessings can become able to freely control any and all plants. Meanwhile, permeation, dwarves like Noel can, by using earth magic, diffuse fertilizers' nutrients through the soil. The power of their magic can even bring the underground currents above ground. After preparing the soil like this, it's possible to prompt germination, growth, and fructification. But tree magic, instant development, the slaves don't respect me in the slightest. He asks when he shouted, "Ain't I useless then?" He ends up critically wounded at the realization that his usefulness lies in cutting costs. Alan says, "Then let me at least do the harvesting." But Sylphie responds with a calm assurance that everything is okay, and the other girls enthusiastically volunteer to handle the situation. Aura cheerfully proclaims that everyone should feast their eyes on her great techniques. Magic swirls in the air as wind magic harvesting and post-processing take place. Alan watches the impressive display of skill, mentally acknowledging how amazing everyone is. Then, a sudden intrusive thought bursts in, shouting that they don't need his sorry self here. Is that what this is? Aura confidently declares how obvious the group's brilliance is. Sylphie, smiling gently, expresses her gratitude with a soft laugh and a quiet foo-foo of appreciation. Alan, overwhelmed by the situation, mentally erupts, cursing internally that with all these beautiful and cute smiling faces looking at him, there is no way he can say anything against it. He questions whether this is their plan all along, only for the goddess to interrupt with a snide remark, suggesting that perhaps he is just that easy. Yet there will be no silence, no surrender. The moment will not end like this. He still has an ace up his sleeve. Alan turns dramatically in a storm of emotion, declaring with firm resolve that laughter should be enjoyed while it lasts. Another proclamation echoes in his mind. This reincarnated life has only just begun. Later, Noel, Sylphie, and Aura gather in the kitchen at Alan's request. Sylphie asks why he summoned them so suddenly. Alan answers that he wants to try a new recipe. Sylphie suggests that if he's hungry, he could simply ask today's cook to prepare something, but Alan has something else in mind. Secretly, Alan intends to make the girls addicted to his food so they can't live without him. While he says he's open to working with others, he secretly prefers having the girls involved. They all begin working together in the kitchen. Sylphie uses her wind magic to thinly slice the yams and asks what comes next. Alan thanks her and checks on Aura's progress. Aura explains that she is using wind pressure to press soybeans. Alan instructs them to remove the leaves from the soybeans so they can be used as fodder. Soon, soybean oil collects in a container. Sylphie and Aura feel surprised as they watch how the soybean oil is produced. The girls still struggle to believe that they are producing soybean oil in such a way. Modern knowledge, Alan thinks, hits hard. He quietly snickers, enjoying the unfolding of his reincarnated life. Aura wonders internally what magic Alan has used for the process, while Noel mentally adds that Alan has simply been observing them work. Sylphie blurts out that Alan can't use magic, but instantly regrets her careless words. Alan feels slightly hurt, though he hides his emotions. Noel's interest in the activity begins to fade, but Sylphie nudges her back into focus. Noel decides she will heat the oil. Alan reflects on how dwarves usually have the metal attribute, which grants them skill in manipulating metals, especially when combined with earth. But Noel stands out because of her strong aptitude for fire. She uses her fire magic, heating the oil instantly. Alan watches silently, admiring Noel's efficiency, while suppressing his feelings of uselessness. Alan then demonstrates how to fry chips. He places sliced yams into oil heated to 170 degrees Celsius, and later sprinkles salt over them. The chips are soon ready. The girls stare at him, confused by the unfamiliar dish. Aura takes one, tastes it, and immediately falls in love with its flavor and aroma. She realizes she might become addicted to it. Alan feels delighted by her reaction. Sylphie takes a chip next, finds herself speechless for a moment, then concludes that it will sell well, revealing her merchant instincts. Noel remains more reserved, leaving Alan unsure of her reaction, though he assumes she also enjoys the new recipe. He then announces that it's time for the main dish, bread. Sylphie recalls how hard and unsavory bread usually is in this world, calling it tasteless no matter how one tries to describe it. She reflects that, without fermentation, bread here tastes almost like something rotten. Alan presents a bowl filled with grape skins, leaving Sylphie confused about his intentions. He places the skins into a container, adds water and sugar, then shakes the mixture. Now prepared to impress them, he performs his demonstration and activates his skill: restoration, dark magic spoiling. Through this, he extracts yeast. The girls become confused, having believed Alan was incapable of using magic. Alan remains calm to build their curiosity, explaining that while he cannot use ordinary magic, this ability is his innate skill: restoration. Sylphie, still puzzled, wonders internally why he refers to it as dark magic. Alan mentally explains that it's simply the restoration of what he has recorded into his brain. As Alan recalls, this ability was explained to him during his reincarnation. In his dream, the guardian angel appeared unexpectedly to provide further clarification. Before beginning her explanation, she apologized to him and assured him that his transmigrator's privilege, the restoration skill, was indeed top tier. However, because of his poor specs, as she bluntly described him as trash, certain limitations had been imposed. The Guardian compared him to a powerful operating system running on junk hardware, limited to minimal memory and capacity. Alan remembered how her harsh mechanical metaphors had left him feeling inadequate, though he had requested she stop phrasing things that way. The Guardian quickly shifted to discussing the skill itself. She explained that restoration combined many meanings into one ability. Any magic Alan saw or heard could be recorded once and restored at any time. Yet there were strict conditions. His flawed memory allowed him to record only once. The restored effect lasted no more than 30 seconds, and his weak body limited him to restoring only materials that could be preserved at the lowest quality. As Alan recalled her words, he also remembered how she had departed, saying morning was approaching. Now, explaining all this to Sylphie, he noticed her surprise. Sylphie wonders why Alan uses such a limited power only to convert spoiled materials. Alan clarifies that what they are dealing with is not spoilage, but fermentation, which is necessary for making bread. The girls remain unfamiliar with the concept of fermentation. Seeing their curious expressions, Alan feels excited and encourages them to learn, assuring them not to be shy. He explains that fermentation shares similarities with spoilage, but has been adapted by humans for beneficial purposes. Yeast breaks down sugars in the dough, producing carbon dioxide and alcohol, which gives bread its soft and fluffy texture. The girls still struggle to fully grasp the process, though Aura begins to admire Alan's vast knowledge, feeling like worshipping him. Not long ago, Alan had wallowed in self-pity, but her admiration renews his confidence. To his surprise, the girls quickly pick up the technique. He realizes they are capable of more than simply controlling tree, wind, or metal elements. Before long, the bread becomes fluffy. Alan remembers the Guardian's words and her cute face, causing a brief arousal. The Guardian's final words echo in his mind as she had said goodbye and left him to his own fate. Alan continues guiding the girls, instructing them to knead the dough while it remains warm, shape it, ferment it again, and finally bake it using fire magic. The bread emerges perfectly baked. The girls feel astonished at what they have achieved. Sylphie reflects that her whole world has changed, and it is no exaggeration. Alan feels joyful as he watches everything unfold after his reincarnation. In his previous life, only Muzuki-chan had been impressed by him, but now, bringing smiles to everyone's faces fills him with happiness. Yet deep inside, his lust remains, leaving him longing for more intimate satisfaction. Two dwarves enter the kitchen, wondering what Alan is making. Alan enjoys the environment. He announces a bread festival for the day, but there is only one rule: no white plates. Sylphie feels overjoyed with Alan's actions. She notices everyone's happiness. After all, they live in a state where good food is scarce. She can't help it. There are some with closed-off hearts, but Alan makes them open at an astonishing speed. Alan doesn't order or coerce them, and if someone works the required minimum, they are free. Alan really has a special charm. Today's bread and potato chips, cooking is one of the 3 pillars of Alan's mix, and if everyone knows according to the plan, they will have a massive turnover. Sylphie contemplates how many trials and errors Alan must have done before executing the fermentation skill so perfectly. Sylphie is crowded with these thoughts. She promises herself that she will work hard and exceed Alan's expectations. Aura relishes the delicious breads. When Aura first hears of Alan's wish to rid the world of hunger, she thinks it's madman's ravings. But now she feels impressed with Alan's vast knowledge and revolutionary ideas. But she is a proud high elf and cannot just keep receiving things without giving back. That's not her style. She says to herself that she will use her full power to make these feelings reach him. She wants to see where Lord Alan ends. Noah takes a bite of bread and thinks how cool Alan is. She ponders on the thought of how Alan selflessly spreads his knowledge. Alan wants them to enjoy tasty food. A kind man. Noah wonders why her heart starts beating fast when Alan smiles these days. She feels she's not as smart as Sylphie, but she wants to be useful and make Alan proud. That's why she must do her best at creating things. But at night of the day, the girls have such thoughts. Someone kidnaps Alan. But who? Is it a jealous dwarf or some merchant or someone else? After all the hard work, everyone deserves some rewards. So Noelle and Sylphie head to a fashion outlet in the market. The owner of the boutique is occupied with her thoughts, wondering what type of customers would come in today. When she turns around, she finds Noelle and Sylphie in their boldest outfits yet. The owner cannot believe her eyes. How come such beautiful women decide to visit her rundown boutique? But suddenly, she spots the slave crests on Noelle and Sylphie. Alan asks the owner to show some clothes which will suit the girls. The owner notices Alan and his young age. She thinks to herself that Alan must be rich to have such high-quality slaves. She showcases the most dazzling and expensive clothes to Alan. The girls look so captivating. She asks herself to close that gaping mouth, please. Wearing the jewelry-studded clothes, the girls say these are very heavy and cannot be worn every day. Alan tells the owner to show something more down to earth. Read cheap. Alan doesn't have the money to pay for those pretty clothes. The owner obliges and shows some regular clothes worn in the capital, a swan apron and fluffy light skirt in the form of a circle, the so-called city girl style. Alan finds the clothes simple and cute. The owner says it would be $120 for the dresses. Alan takes a big gulp. He acts quickly and jumps into the second-hand item cart. As expected, he uses restoration skill to renew the old clothes. He shows 2 shiny dresses to his slaves. The owner is surprised. Alan and the girls get out of the boutique with great-looking outfits. Alan feels happy with his shopping tactics. He saves money and gets some coupons too. The owner senses that Alan is going to revolutionize the market soon. That's there. She says they will see where Alan takes the girls next. But till that time, they return to Alan's everyday life. Today, Alan ferments bread using dark magic. He gives the bread to his slaves. As they jump in joy tasting the bread, Alan gets his eyes on what he wants. Poor boy. Later in the day, they play a lot of board games, but Alan loses most of them. But he feels happy that he is closer to the girls and able to smell their perfumes. In bed, he hopes for another magnificent day. However, in the middle of the night, Alan hears a rustle. He thinks it might be the night where he will get all the action. He gets nervous thinking about it. He thinks of all the girls he must have impressed today with his bread. He decides not to give in to temptation. He keeps his eyes closed even after hearing constant rustling. Then he feels a rope around him. He thinks to himself that for the first, it is better to ease. But when Alan opens his eyes, he sees a smiling girl with a nice figure but inside a weird item. The girl quickly routs Alan's mouth to make him quiet. He wonders if it is spider thread. He asks himself if she's going to eat him. The girl says she is not going to eat him. Somebody interrupts her. She says they don't have time for leisurely talk. She lifts Alan with her arms, pressing against her chest. Dirty Alan feels the warmth. In no time, she jumps out of the room. The girls break into Alan's room. They ask the spider girl to release Alan. Aura threatens her, saying it's 3 versus 1. Noelle says it is better if the spider girl surrenders herself. The spider girl acknowledges the girls and their power, but she has no mood to fight. She jumps off the building towards the jungle. The girls ask her to stop. But in the forest, the spider girl easily outsmarts Alan's slaves. Alan wonders how this kidnapping is so quick and easy. He expects a strong resistance from his girls, but finds none. Pressed against the spider girl's chest, he cannot stop thinking about the miserable happenings. The spider girl finally reaches her destination inside the forest. She drops Alan to the ground. Alan hops like a worm and asks the girl to untie him, but it is useless. The girl is an arachne who, according to Greek myths, are masters of weaving. Alan wonders if he is in danger. The spider girl tells that she brought him because someone needs healing. As Alan guesses, the girl is after his skills. The spider girl asks her sister Ra to come out. Ra cannot believe that her elder sister actually abducted someone. Ra tells Alan not to worry and apologizes for her sister's doings. She tells Alan to be at ease and says they are not going to hurt him. Neck interrupts her, but Ra says it's enough. Alan notices the injured eye and legs of Ra. She is still bleeding. Neck tells Ra to stop arguing and says they must see her injuries. Neck leans towards Alan and requests him to heal her sister. Alan feels definitely a little scared looking at Neck, but healing is an easy job for him. However, he wonders what will happen to him after he heals Ra. The girls are arguing among themselves. Alan makes his decision to help the injured girl. Out of fear, Alan asks Neck if he could get some questions clarified. Ra tells that he doesn't need to be that respectful. Alan says that healing Ra won't be that hard. However, they must not harm his family or his girls. Suddenly, the angel appears and starts poking fun at him. Ra asks if Neck knows about Alan's family. Neck replies that she didn't harm any of those girls. Neck promises that things will remain as they are and no one will harm his girls. Alan asks if he could trust her. Neck vows by her sister. The angels find Alan's heroics really funny. Poor Alan. Alan says he will heal Ra, but she needs to swear the spirit's contract that she won't cause harm to Sylphie and others. Ra says she will do, but Neck says no. She argues that if Alan's girls come charging at them, then they must protect themselves. She denies the conditions, but Alan smirks. In his mind, he is battling the thoughts of how the elite group of slaves let him get kidnapped. He starts recollecting events where he noticed how the girls wanted to get rid of him. He analyzes his actions and cries. However, he bravely says to Neck that she has to accept his condition no matter what. Just like Neck has Ra, whom she treasures, he also has people important to him. As long as there's no guarantee that they won't attack those girls after he helps, restoration is off the table. Meanwhile, Sylphie is cursing herself because they can't protect Alan. Noelle says she'll call for help. Aura says it's better to call the elves first. She also points out that the crest on the spider girl means that she is a commander of the demon lord of lust. Aura looks at the spider thread and says that their enemy has prepared an escape route and it will be very difficult to find her in the forest. Sylphie admits their weakness. They would easily lose to the Arachne in the forest, but she has a plan. She has put a leech seed on Alan when the spider girl was jumping off the roof. With the leech seed, they can pick up on sounds and Alan's whereabouts. Suddenly, they hear some sound. They must come up with a strategy to deal with the situation. They can hear that Alan is polite in his conversation. They wonder if he's trying to buy some time. Alan says that if they intend to harm his family, he will show them no mercy. The girls better be unharmed. He says that he also has people important to him. Sylphie, Aura, and other elves are taken aback by Alan's words. Sylphie gets moist-eyed, realizing how Alan always puts them before him. She orders the dwarves to protect the village and asks elves to come with her. She gives a war cry. She says they will return their master. Alan is still negotiating the conditions of his release, but he finds the whole situation petty. Suddenly, Net gets out of her spider body and appears before Alan wearing hot lingerie. She puts forward a proposal. She will let Alan do whatever he wants in return for healing her sister Aura. In his mind, Alan is nervous about his next step, but he has built a strong mental barrier to deal with situations like this. However, that barrier doesn't last long as Net says that she will let Alan on her body. Alan tries hard not to give in to this temptation, but Net says she'll make a spirit pact with Alan. Alan thinks about the moment when he got a chance to feel the soft body of Net. Alan remembers his sister from the past life. He was caught in the act of watching 18+ stuff by his sister, and the saddest part about it was she was doing a part-time job to support Alan. Alan gets back to his senses. He gathers himself and thinks about 3 points. Number 1 is his own safety. Number 2 is the safety of Sylphie and others. Number 3 is whether to use restoration on Aura or not. Meanwhile, Roz is concerned about Alan's nosebleed. She suggests him to breathe through the mouth. Net comes closer to check Alan and finds his nosebleed gross. Then, suddenly, something distracts Net. She looks up to the sky and senses something weird. She says that she will support Rachan, and then both Net and Roz start moving into the forest. A glowing square appears in the sky. It seems like a barrier. Alan wonders what this new drama is. Then appear Sylphie, Noelle, and Opera, who apologize for being late. With one magic spell, Sylphie frees Alan from the threads of the spider. She also thanks Alan for buying them more time. When he looks up around, he finds elves all around. They have come to save him. Sylphie thanks Alan for having faith in her. She is happy, but Alan has no clue what she's talking about. Then, again, Arachne appears out of nowhere. Rachmi says that she thought Sylphie was composed, but here she is acting with such a cute face. Sylphie responds saying it seems she has given up on escaping. Alan's girls and the spider girls are standing face to face. Alan has no clue what's going on. But as predicted, Alan thinks it's time to bluff. He says he was on edge, but he guesses it went to his plan. Everyone is surprised. Next says, Even as an enemy, he has got some impressive nerve. She says she needs to raise her evaluation by a couple of points. With his bluff, Alan manages to impress the girls once again. They are all head over heels. Alan wonders why the girls have come to help him. With the girls by his side, he feels really powerful. Looking at the spider girls, he says the table has turned. He thinks now he can have better negotiations. Neck laughs it off. She says she'll go along with whatever she can do. She proposes the condition that no one should dare harm Rach. Alan says his request hasn't changed. He wants them to agree not to harm Sylphie and the others in exchange for restoration on Rach. And of course, justified actions are allowed. And they can work the details together. Neck thinks how come Alan has a negotiation plan which favors them. She just wants not to get tricked again. She asks whether her body is included in that negotiation. The answer is a big no. Alan feels that he needs to add more demands to the list, or else it will look weird. As he can't think clearly, he simply asks the Spider Girls to provide regular supplies of their threads. This surprises the Spider Girls. Though Alan thinks it's not a bad idea, his slaves are also shocked by the weird demand. They all demand an explanation. Now, how would Alan tackle this one? Will the girls come to know about his lustful ideas? Rach thinks to herself that Alan is a guy after all, so it won't be a surprise if he's interested in the female slaves. Meanwhile, Sylphie is lost in her own thoughts. She wonders why Alan is making such a deal with the Arachne, whereas he won't even lay his hands on them. She doubts her stature as an ancient elf who is called the embodiment of beauty. She is sure that she has lost it. Sylphie can't wrap her head around the fact that Alan is making a deal to get the threads from Arachne. It doesn't make sense to her. She feels really frustrated with Alan's actions. Even Noelle has the same sort of feelings about Alan. She thinks how can Alan make such negotiations with such calm composure in front of a Demon Lord's army executive? She wonders whether they lack charm. She feels angry inside. Aura is certainly smitten by Alan's way of dealing with things. She says to herself that she would not know how to act in front of someone at her level as a romance player, and to behave like that in front of Sylphie and Noelle. Aura can't even digest what's unfolding in front of her. If she were Alan, she wouldn't have taken any chances in front of someone they are admired by. If it's a trick by Alan, it's a little too extreme. Aura says to herself, but Alan is clueless as always, unsure of what he's got himself into. Commenting on Alan, Neck says that he is surprisingly passionate despite his appearance. She asks Ra what she would do to Alan. Ra doesn't get what Neck means exactly. To convey that she wants a thread from someone is, for Arachne, considered a marriage proposal. Neck drops the bomb. Ra tells Alan that they just met. She suggests they become friends. Instant rejection. Alan isn't ready for that. He wonders why his slaves wouldn't get angry to learn that their useless master they have come to save has proposed to his kidnappers and got rejected. A few weeks later, Ra arrives at Alan's place with threads. She has recovered from her injuries. However, it seems she has lost her ability known as the magic eye, but she is in great shape. And the thread bundle is heavy, that's what Alan says. Alan recalls how it all started. He guesses that Neck and Ra used to live in the hill behind the monastery. When they became suspicious of the sudden noise, they sent a small spider to investigate. The spider must have seen him using restoration on the camera, and Neck acted alone, carrying out the abduction for her little sister. He thinks how beautiful the sisterly love between Neck and Ra is. The guardian angel mocks Alan, saying that if he didn't have such pathetic A and B capacity, he could have handled the issue more efficiently. Alan pleads with her not to roast him. Now, Ra and Alan have a relationship based on a spirit contract where they engage in trade. According to the contract, as long as they don't cause harm, the Arachne sisters won't use force. This allows the restoration of Ra's eyes and legs. Since Arachne's threads are of top quality, they are provided once every quarter. In exchange, a large supply of threads from subordinate spider monsters is delivered, for which Alan has to provide food. Alan feels quite happy with this agreement, as long as Sylphie has no issues with it. He can meet Ra and the others regularly, and he also enjoys their beauty. Noelle arrives and asks if they're done with the thread delivery. She notices a kid monster and asks if she can give it some food. Ra tells her to go ahead. Noelle gives some fries and plays with the monster, lost in its gem-like eyes. Alan recalls how the elves were first hesitant about the whole thing, but now everything has settled down, and the elves like the spider monsters too. Alan enjoys watching this scene. Then Ra asks Alan about his feelings toward their boss. It's about Sylphie, the ancient elf, embodiment of beauty. Ra says Sylphie misunderstood the whole proposal. However, Alan tells her not to worry about it, as things have already been cleared up. Alan recalls what he had to go through. He was just really passionate about explaining that he only wanted to share the threads. Sylphie seemed pretty unhappy about it, but he somehow managed to get through without any issues. After that, Sylvie became more devoted to her business, starting with a reassessment of farming efficiency. She even proposed going independent from the merchant guild. Alan, however, feels a little concerned about Sylvie's changing attitude as he overheard her saying that she couldn't stay with him if things continued like this. Alan feels terrified by the thought that Sylvie might become independent and leave his side. He thinks he's a deadbeat. He feels stressed because he doesn't want to get dumped by her. He knows he must do something to make Sylvie like him again. However, he has some backup plans already, and if those succeed, Sylvie would be very happy. He thinks of the prototype he has been working on, and his heart races like a bullet train. Seeing Alan lost in thought, Ra asks Noel if he's always like this. Noel says Alan's expressions are always lively. Neck thinks Alan is an interesting boy. He may not have great combat skills, but has a sharp mind. She marvels at how Alan managed to negotiate a thread deal with them. Despite being human, he made everyone around him so devoted, a trust that erases the barrier between races. Neck believes Ra has taken a liking to Alan as well, though she also wonders whether it's all part of Alan's plan. Someone interrupts and asks Neck about her good mood. It's QB-chan, the demon lord of lust. Neck says she is just the same as usual, but QB insists she spill the details. Neck says she found an interesting man and wonders if the position for the demon lord is still vacant. QB looks at Neck intently. She says that Neck found such a charming guy and that she's curious. Neck explains that the man is human. A human? This piques QB's interest. She says she hasn't had intercourse with a human man yet. QB revels in the thought of Alan satisfying her needs. She wants to test whether this man is worthy of the position of the demon lord. Alan, she thinks, his luck is soon going to shine. Meanwhile, Sylvie is lost in her thoughts. It's been a while since Alan bought her, yet he still surprises her with his behavior. Even now, he remains a mystery, someone with unknown depth that she can't grasp. Alan always acts like a sleazy, third-rate man. No matter how one sees him, he seems like an enemy of women. But sometimes, he stirs up her maternal instincts. Alan plays Jenga with one of his slaves and showcases his skills without using any wind magic. Sylvie finds that amazing. She admires how every slave likes him and feels surprised by how he treats everyone. Sylvie interrupts Alan to report their income and expenditure. Others wait for him. She flips through her ledger book. First, she wants to discuss the rights to entertainment products. However, her mind remains occupied with thoughts of Alan, how he doesn't monopolize or exploit them at all. Alan could have been rich or powerful, but he handed them freedom. He played games with them so he could free the slaves without making them feel bad. From the beginning, he never intended to win against them. She wonders whether Alan is testing their autonomy or trying to see how the slaves would operate without him. Whether Alan does it on purpose or holds himself back, Sylvie remains unsure. Recently, Alan set up accounts for Noel and Sylvie. He also gave Sylvie responsibility for managing the village's funds. Sylvie feels surprised that Alan keeps an account for each slave. That means he has high expectations from everyone. If that's the case, Sylvie feels really happy with what Alan is doing. Suddenly, Alan asks whether they can increase the slave payments by 5 times. 5 times? That's too much, Sylvie thinks. Alan suggests nervously that perhaps 3 or 2 times would be better. Sylvie knows it's not that difficult, as their sales of jam and potato chips have skyrocketed. The slaves' wages are already too low, so increasing it 5 times won't cause much trouble. But the surprise comes when Alan asks Sylvie to cover the cost of Noel and the others' crafting without worrying about money, and if needed, she can take it from his own account. Sylvie feels worried but says it's not a problem if Alan doesn't mind. Truly, Alan remains unpredictable, just like his boner. Even when he was kidnapped by the Arachne sisters, he had no means to fight, yet he showed no signs of fear. He bought time negotiating for their safety and turned the situation in their favor. He even managed to bring Arachne's thread into negotiation. Sylvie feels simply taken aback by his skills. Sylvie leaves the room, slamming the door behind her, but she continues thinking about Alan. She wonders why Alan didn't blame her or the slaves even after getting kidnapped. He shares profits generously and values them. Sylvie believes she isn't doing enough for her master and doesn't deserve to be by his side. Alan's potential alone has turned him into a king. She knows she can't be complacent just because Alan trusts her. She focuses harder on what can be done and commits to improving plague cultivation, securing funds, and anything else that helps. Alan works with Ra and Noel, dusting off a machine. Alan sneezes, and Ra asks if he's okay. Noel uses wind magic to clear the dust. There it is, a fully functioning weaving machine. Alan explains to Noel and Ra how this machine can turn thread into clothes, emphasizing that dressing up doubles a girl's charm. Though it's not that Alan would dislike girls without clothes, He would give an arm, a leg, and an eye for that. But that's for another day. In his previous life, he studied fabrics and clothing, and now he intends to use his knowledge, creating a win-win situation for all. Suddenly, a few slaves barge in. Alan tells them they've done a good job, but the slaves don't understand. It's something new for them. Confused, Alan pats their heads while secretly hoping no one tells Sylphie. He thanks Noelle too by patting her. Ra feels excited to bring more thread to Alan. Alan reflects on his earlier conversation with Sylphie, where he suggested increasing wages and craft costs. He has given more power to Sylphie but wonders where this may lead. Meanwhile, the slaves feel eager to try the machine. Alan demonstrates how to use it, teaching them weaving. But what he really wants is some time for humpy-dumpy, tickety-tumpy. The slaves learn how to use the machine in no time and apply their magic efficiently. Alan stands there watching his slaves in action, and soon the cloth is ready. It's smooth, sparkling, and captivates both Noelle and Ra. The next step is to make clothes from the fabric, but Alan admits he's still figuring that part out. Ra enthusiastically offers to do it. Alan thinks about how to teach Ra about making clothes, but his guardian angel teases him that it's like preaching Buddha, always savage. Alan tells Ra, who remains confident about making clothes, the type of outfit he wants. By that time, Sylphie returns, and Aura grabs her hand, saying she'll guide Sylphie to where their master is. As Sylphie enters the machine room, she sees Alan in action. Aura hands over the clothes to Sylphie, saying that she observed her working really hard, so she deserves the first one out of the loom. Sylphie can't contain her happiness. She tears up and thanks Alan for the gesture. Things take a surprising turn when Alan says he wants to see Sylphie in the new clothes. She has no choice but to put them on, and damn, she looks really hot. Sylphie says she likes the texture of the dress and praises the quality of Arachne's thread. Alan compliments her, saying it looks great and calling it a China dress, which he thought would suit her. Sylphie thanks him. Alan's eyes become fixated on Sylphie's thighs. He's enchanted. Sylphie notices this and feels a little uncomfortable. It's been a while since Alan gazed at her like this. She thinks she should wear more clothes like this that reveal her legs. Then, out of nowhere, Net shows up and interrupts everyone, saying she's there to pick up Ra. Ra replies that she doesn't need to, but then Net turns to Sylphie, saying she has something to tell her and asks for a bit of her time. Sylphie agrees. Meanwhile, Alan gets lost in his own fantasy, thinking that Sylphie in a China dress is a terrifying, destructive power. Though it was embarrassing, he remembers passionately explaining his request to Ra to make the slits deep and the size tight enough to produce a silhouette. Suddenly, the guardian angel appears and teases him that the size fits Sylphie too well. Alan explains it's one of his skills to measure the body through the cloth. Sylphie calls him. She says they all discussed and decided that starting today, he doesn't ever leave the monastery anymore. Alan feels shocked. Did Sylphie just turn the table? Is he under house arrest? He wonders what the girls discussed. A few moments earlier, Sylphie had a conversation with Net. Sylphie asked what Net wanted to talk about. Net asked her not to be so wary, saying she just wanted to get along. She mentioned that there's a possibility Alan will be recommended as a Demon Lord candidate. Sylphie feels stunned since Net serves the Demon Lord of Lust and realizes what might happen. After all, Alan's actions have caused so much commotion. She thought it would eventually reach the Demon Lords, but didn't expect it so soon. Sylphie asks what Net means by getting along, and requests her to explain more specifically. Net agrees, but suddenly clings to Sylphie, surprising her. Net expresses that she wants what Sylphie is wearing, the smoothness, texture, and shine of the fabric. She's excited that their threads turned into something like this. Net clarifies that she will give something in return. With Alan's knowledge and the dwarves' skills involved in making these clothes, she wants them to enjoy it together. Sylphie agrees, admitting she was surprised. Net proposes that their territory establish a Holy Spirit contract so they can use the forest. Depending on the conditions, she's even willing to transfer ownership. Sylphie finds it suspicious but continues listening. Net offers an extra service where the spider-type monsters can watch over Alan all day using heat detection and vibration detection for surveillance. Sylphie thinks it's appealing. Originally, they were planning to create a barrier using wind magic, but with these conditions, they could create an almost indestructible system. She recalls how powerless they were when Alan was kidnapped, so being prepared for the worst seems wise. She wonders if it's too good to be true. Net explains that it won't just be the demon lords who desire to see Alan. Others like the sage, the sword saint, and the hero also watch the demon lord's movements. If they attack the forest directly, they won't be able to escape unharmed. That's why, if the time comes, she wants to borrow Alan's power because Ra tends to act recklessly. Net seems possessed with her own thoughts. Though her way of doing things isn't praiseworthy, Sylphie recognizes that Net's actions stem from caring for Ra. Neither of them would hurt others without reason. Alan saw through this from the start, Sylphie realizes. Sylphie says she'll speak to Alan herself, though the final decision is up to him. Net agrees and requests that Alan refrain from going out recklessly. Sylphie echoes that sentiment. With a demon lord moving, it stirs up the adventurers, causing them to run wild in the imperial capital. Even with guards accompanying him, there's still a lot of risk in going out. Sylphie decides to tell everyone and encourage Alan to avoid going out unless absolutely necessary. She believes it's a good idea, prohibiting him from leaving after establishing a surveillance system. It's almost like house arrest. It's painful, but Alan himself understands the threat of restoration. If it's him, he will probably figure out their intentions right away. When Alan hears about the house arrest, he starts sweating. Beginning with Noelle, Aura, and Ra, everyone feels it's a reasonable decision, but Alan can't wrap his head around it. Why this decision suddenly? Sylphie explains that Alan must first get permission from her if he really needs to go out. Alan wonders if now that he has obtained the ability to make clothes, they think he'll get involved in some kind of perverted crimes just to satisfy his eyes. Sylphie tells him that someone might be targeting his life. Alan wonders for what? Being a pervert? Sylphie explains that the demon lord of lust is interested in him and asks if he would be willing to meet her. Alan realizes that Net has told the demon lord about his restoration skill. There's a possibility his cheat skill has attracted dangerous individuals, such as the demon lord. Alan curses himself, thinking why he didn't put a condition to hide his ability in his spirit contract. He has restoration skills, but his other combat skills are trash. If he ever comes face to face with anyone, he'll be easily overpowered. Then everyone will figure out he's a petty freeloader. What a shame. Alan worries about these latest developments, but again, if it's the demon lord of lust, he thinks it might be okay. Nek explains why it's not a bad idea to meet the demon lord of lust, as she works behind the scenes of the brothel and helps stop sexual crimes. They don't say it clearly, but it's definitely a win-win relationship for both sides. Alan questions what exactly he's being recommended for. Nek explains that when he inherits the title, he'll be granted a unique skill. Alan thinks he's about to get another skill on top of restoration and feels like he's moving up fast. However, after hearing the details, Alan realizes it's a scam. In return for the title, he would get a subordinate enhancement skill that increases Sylphie and others' skills by about 5 levels. That's why it's called the weakest among demon lords. The angel sarcastically comments that it suits him. Alan says he has no interest in becoming a demon lord. As long as he can keep living by eating, sleeping, and someone touching like a game of reversey, that's all he needs. The angel asks why he makes it sound like that's the bare minimum for living. Alan explains that if he were to become a demon lord, he would have to maintain some connection with human society and take on the role of a ruler. He admits he's lazy and not fit for that. The angel suspects he has something in mind. She's right. Alan thinks about an integrated resort, starting with an international conference center. It includes hotels, commercial facilities, a shopping mall, restaurants, a casino, a theater, a cinema, an amusement park, sports facilities, hot spring facilities, and so on. It's basically a fun paradise with everything in it. Alan recalls how in his past life he might have interned with Disney. He thinks that if he became the general manager of such a place, it would feel like he's in charge of people's happiness and enjoyment. He sighs, admitting that establishing something like that is way too unrealistic. The angel agrees, saying he doesn't even have the guts to support 50 slaves on his own. Alan pleads with the angel to help him escape the place. Realistically speaking, if he were to inherit the Demon Lord title, Sylphie and the others would be the ones actually doing the work. He doesn't want to drag anyone into his reckless adventures. Living an ordinary down-to-earth life is best. The angel suggests he has nothing to lose by bringing it up. A freeloader like him, wanting to become the master of a nation? Everyone would just laugh it off, she adds. Alan agrees. He imagines if he told Mizuki-chan this story, she would say, "Bro, are you planning to become some kind of foolish lord or something?" Since Nek and the others are there, he thinks about bringing it up at dinner as a joke. Then, the angel disappears. But when Alan actually brings it up at dinner, everyone looks at him in surprise. He panics, realizing it's no longer a laughing matter. He tries to diffuse the tension by saying he's just kidding, but Sylphie grabs his hands and says, "Let's do it." Noelle adds that it's challenging but would be fun. To Alan's surprise, everyone feels excited about the whole idea. Aura grabs Alan from behind, saying she will make the women of the world understand the essence of beauty and fashion. Alan feels the soft pressure from behind but acts tough. He wonders if Aura wants something funny. Sylphie asks if Neck, the demon lord of lust, will personally visit them. Neck replies that she will. Sylphie says they need some time to prepare and will give her the best hospitality they can offer. She suggests letting the demon lord herself decide whether to accept Alan's recommendation. Neck asks Ra if that's fine. Ra replies that it sounds interesting, so she'll give it a try. Sylphie says they will get started right away and tells Alan they should first decide on the direction, but Alan freezes. Noelle comments that he's passed out while standing. While Alan stands frozen, caught up in a sudden lucky pervert moment, morning light slips into the room, casting a warm glow over Noelle, who curls up on the bed peacefully. Her hair sprawls messily across the pillow as she barely moves, completely knocked out. Then, breaking the silence, a soft voice speaks. Alan murmurs that Noelle looks as cute as ever. Her eyelids flutter open, still heavy with sleep. In the morning, Noelle mumbles groggily. Stepping outside, she stretches, letting the cool air wake her up a bit. She yawns, still half asleep, and mutters good morning. That's when she spots Chi, her tiny creature buddy, watching her with beady eyes like a small, furry security guard. She chuckles, thanking it for keeping watch, reaching out to give it some appreciation. The creature makes a tiny noise, probably its way of saying, "Yeah, no problem." She turns toward the door, running through her to-do list in her head. She reminds herself to prep farmland for new crops today and adjust the new loom too. Meanwhile, Sylphie stares at the clothes Alan gave her, feeling warm inside. They're nice, clearly chosen with care, but since her work might dirty them, she decides to save them for later. Noelle reflects that if anyone is working the hardest to get closer to Alan, it's definitely Sylphie. When Alan talked about freeing the slaves, it wasn't just about cutting them loose. He wanted to build something that would make them want to stay with him even after gaining freedom. Sylphie understood that immediately. Alan wasn't just saving them, he wanted to give them real power once they were free, and Sylphie wants to be part of that. For now, all they can do is trust Alan and see where it leads. Noelle wonders how Sylphie figured all that out so fast. The dwarf girls fit into Alan's crew so naturally. It feels like they were always meant to be there. Then comes the thought, if everyone gets the same evaluation, it's pointless. The best results should get the best rewards. So Noelle decides to step up her game, not just for herself, but for Alan. He's not just some leader, he's her savior. She wants to be useful to him and make sure he has everything he needs. Then a dumb thought hits her. Lately, Alan has been really focused on Sylphie's legs. A lot. She smirks, thinking that if he's fine with hers, he can stare all he wants. The next day, Alan sits at his desk, introducing himself as master of the place in his usual casual way, but there isn't much left for him to do. His office is more like a decorative set piece than an actual workspace. At this point, he's basically become a background character in his own operation. But since productivity has skyrocketed, maybe that's just how it's going to be. Then Sylphie hits him with an important question. What new plants should they grow to entertain the demon lord of lust? Because priorities. Alan flips through a book, hoping to find answers, only to realize it's some ancient human-written encyclopedia. The sketches are nice, but the text is unreadable, useless. This leads Alan to a full-blown meltdown, eyes welling up, dramatic wailing, the whole thing. Everyone around him is shocked. Sylphie asks what's wrong. Alan whispers, as if it's the end of the world, "There's no rice." Since they have to grow something, they settle on sugarcane for now. Good enough. Meanwhile, Alan continues his minor existential crisis over his own usefulness. The dwarves' earth magic is far superior, making farming super efficient. Even when he uses his magic, it feels pointless. He has nothing to do in the fields. Sylphie tells him to stop wasting time and go back inside, but Alan refuses. If he can't work the fields, he'll find another way to contribute. Thanks to Noelle's genius, they have a game-changing loom that restocks threads automatically. Fabric production levels up. Alan swears his intentions are pure and calls Ra, but his heavy breathing over clothing designs seems suspicious. He excitedly shows off his sketches, underwear, blouses, skirts, sweaters, socks, the whole package. Ra expresses concern, asking if maybe he should focus on everyone else's clothing first, before getting too deep into personal designs. Despite the awkward moment, Ra respects his dedication to taking care of the slaves first. They even call it manly. In the end, the girls agree to make the clothes, somewhat impressed by his determination. Later, Tina and Ra walk in, wearing outfits that are clearly Alan's handiwork. They look amazing, maybe even a little impressed. Ra asks as village chief if she can really take the clothes. While continuing, she mentions that it'll come out of her salary. Alan waves it off, telling her not to worry and to think of it as a gift from him. He says he'd be happy if they accepted it. The girls exchange glances, then nod. They thank Alan. Tina chimes in, saying they're grateful. Ellie speaks up, saying she and Tina will be in his care again today. Alan simply nods and agrees. Then Tina brings up a past event where Ellie escaped last time, but this time, Ellie begs the others to give it their all. Alan smirks, thinking today he's finally going to capture it. In his head, he thinks this is what they call a lucky pervert moment. He's been beaten down all this time but finally realizes why. It was simply a lack of experience. The strategies from his old world didn't work here. But after countless hours playing games, eating, sleeping, reversey, and more, he has reached a new level. He can checkmate even after losing his rook, bishop, knight, and lance. Meanwhile, the goddess watches everything unfold. She chuckles, finding it hilarious even with a handicap. Alan, deep in thought, smirks, thinking they shouldn't underestimate him. He was once called a child prodigy for a brief period as a kid. Ellie sits there, fully accepting her loss and waiting for the village chief's orders. The tension is real. Alan, however, thinks, yes, penny wrapping. Show me the underwear. Ellie freaks out, calling Tina and Ra, saying she might get defiled. Tina and Ra respond, telling her there's no way that's happening, but Alan knows it's not that simple. As he's lost in thought, someone calls his name. It's Noelle. She shows up unexpectedly wearing that outfit. Naturally, Alan asks if she wore it for him. Noelle shrugs it off, saying she just finished work and decided to put it on. Alan is caught completely off guard. She looks great. Not her usual work clothes, but it suits her perfectly. She's adorable. Noelle asks if there's something he needs. Before Alan can answer, she pulls out an ear cleaning tool, reminding him that he mentioned it before. She says she had leftover materials and decided to make one. Alan, being Alan, figures he might as well use it now. Ellie takes over and carefully starts cleaning his ears, telling him to stay still. The sensation hits him. He realizes he's been neglecting his ears badly. Ellie, slightly annoyed but amused, points out how much buildup there is. Alan sits there barely holding it together. It's both embarrassing and weirdly enjoyable. The situation feels oddly intimate, but also kind of hilarious. As things settle, Alan reflects. He realizes he got too caught up in his excitement and suggests they should take their time instead of rushing things. His mind also drifts to Mizuki-chan in his own world, as she reassures him playfully about saving the fun for last. Then, his brain takes a wild turn. He suddenly hyper-focuses on one thing. He really wants to see Sylphie's panties. His determination is real. He calls out to her, setting up whatever ridiculous, awkward moment is about to happen. Out of nowhere, he asks Sylphie if he can grab some sugarcane for a new dish. She agrees and asks what he's making. Flustered, he mumbles something about making a dessert to welcome the demon lord of lust. Sylphie immediately perks up at that, but Alan gets distracted. He notices Sylphie's stockings and wonders if she wears them all the time because she loves them, or if it's just a coincidence. Meanwhile, Sylphie runs the airlift trading company, which somehow becomes the top trading company in the imperial capital. At the same time, Kazaidu, founded by Aura and later renamed Meili Kisadu, thrives in the cosmetics business thanks to soybean-based products. Elaine finds the whole thing hilarious. Who would have thought stockings and lingerie would become part of a business success story? Thanks to the Aragni sisters, lingerie sales skyrocket. Even the flower district, run by the demon lord of lust, enjoys the supply. Business booms in the weirdest ways. Despite all the progress around him, Elaine starts feeling left behind. Everyone else gets stronger, and he's just there. Suddenly, he remembers something important. Warba mochi. Sweet potatoes, soybeans, sugarcane, yeah, this could work. And of course, being Elaine, he sneaks in a classic pervy moment, mentioning that thanks to wind magic, he gets a beautiful view of some panties. Priorities. Then he fully embraces his ridiculousness and gives himself the absurd nickname, the Warby Mochi Rampage, aka Panty Paradise. Even he starts questioning if he's going too far. Seriously, even water fleas deserve better than this. While all this nonsense happens, Ellie crushes sweet potatoes with wind pressure, sets the starch, and dries it out. Meanwhile, Tina works on sugar production, crushing sugarcane, extracting juice, and refining it. Alan, fascinated, immediately begs her not to throw away the leftover pulp since it can be used for watts. Tina explains the whole sugar-making process. Dissolve crystals in warm water, remove impurities, separate them into crystals and molasses, dry it. Boom! Refined sugar and waste molasses ready to go. She's super excited. At this point, Alan remembers the goddess once called him a talkative water flea. He aggressively yells at her to shut up. Now it's his turn. He takes the sweet potato starch, sugar, and water, mixes them together, and heats it up until it gets sticky. Once evenly spread and cooled, Aura tells him to roast the soybeans, grind them into powder, and mix them with sugar. After coating the mochi with this mixture, it's ready, and it really looks like slime. Aura, having no clue what to expect, takes a bite. The second she does, she loses it. Fwa. It's so good. Bouncy, sweet, chewy, delicious. She demands more. 2, 3, not just one. Alain watches in amusement. For some reason, his brain immediately shifts back to underwear. He randomly starts thinking about different panties. In his head, he screams, "Fantastic! I'm so glad to be alive." Then snap. Someone calls his name. Alan, he panics. Noel. Noel, completely oblivious to his internal chaos, casually tells him the war of the mochi is amazing. Alan, still reeling from his previous train of thought, awkwardly responds, "Oh, glad you liked it." Then she changes the topic, asking about the outfit he's working on. She lifts her clothes slightly, showing more of her upper thigh, and asks if the length is okay. Alan completely freezes before stammering something about work clothes. She suggests adding slits like Sylphie's. Alan, now very aware she's distracting him from his panty thoughts, can barely function. Then it hits him. Just like the desserts, lingerie, and outfits, their hospitality plan is perfect. Even the demon lord of lust will be beyond satisfied. The grand hospitality plan is finally complete. Then the big day arrives. Aura feels confused. What's with all this noise? What's going on? Neck, equally concerned, asks what's happening. Sylphie suddenly drops the bomb. Apologetically, she says, "Wait, where's Alan?" Even though she went out of the way to come here, Alan is gone. She can't find him anywhere. It turns out, despite being under house arrest, Alan gets kidnapped again. Meanwhile, Alan is chained up, hands and legs bound, mouth covered, kneeling on the floor. He struggles, making weird muffled noises. The goddess just sits there eating. She sighs. Seriously? How many times are you gonna pull this same stunt? Alan keeps struggling for his life. Again, that's it for today's wild ride. Sylphie drops the bomb, Alan's been kidnapped again. While he struggles, the goddess chills. And that is the end of the manga for now. Smash that like button. Drop your theories in the comments. Subscribe for more twists. Until next time, keep watching.